In this section I'll be covering aesthetics. Generally the UX/UI summary of aesthetics is that aesthetic design should be left to those schooled and skilled in its application, graphic and visual designers for user experience. Essentially, users make lasting judgments about a website and its web page's appeal, within a split second of seeing it for the first time. This first impression is influential enough to later affect their opinions of a site's usability and trustworthiness. So in less time than it takes to blink your eye, the user has established a judgment about the usability and trustworthiness of your site. So what is aesthetics? For starters, aesthetics is concerned with anything that appeals to the senses, not just what we see, but what we hear, smell, taste, and feel. In short, how we perceive and interpret the world. As user experience professionals, we must consider every stimulus that might influence interactions. Perhaps more importantly, aesthetics examines our effective domain response to an object or phenomenon. In other words, aesthetics is not just about the artistic merit of web buttons or other visual effects, but about how people respond to these elements. Aesthetics and affect. When we talk about affect, we're talking about feelings and emotions, not about the "I feel positive about your brand" sense of feelings and emotions, but about the ways in which they influence perceived and actual usability. According to consumersunion.org, a Consumer Reports Web Watch report, the appeal of the overall visual design of a site, including layout, typography, font size, and color schemes, is the #1 factor we use to evaluate a website's credibility. This makes sense. Think about how our personal appearance, our personal aesthetic, affects how people perceive us, or how product packaging influences our perception of the product inside. So, how do we create trust in our application interfaces, aside from providing the basics, such as reliable information and uptime? By being attentive to visual design, for one thing. Attention to design details implies that the same care and attention has been spent on the other, less visible, parts of the product, which implies that this is a trustworthy product. Things from research presented at the Computer-Human Interface Conference. Users judge the relevancy of identical search results from different search engines based on the brand. Participants in the study indicated that the results from Google and Yahoo were superior to identical results found through Windows Live, Bing, or a generic search engine. What is a brand but perceptions? From studies on choice to first impressions, neuroscience is exploring how the brain works, and it's kind of scary. We're not nearly as in charge of our decisions as we'd like to believe. Consider what you're doing with your interfaces to speak to people's emotions. Industrial product design, automobile manufacturing, and other more mature industries get this with tools such as Kano modeling that have been used for decades. But user interface development is still maturing and catching up to what these other disciplines already know. The most direct way to influence a decision or perception is through the emotions.